Oh, Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to Transformation TV. Welcome to my show, Helping You Transform. And I get to do this by interviewing wonderful, wonderful people. And I'm just so excited to start this new year with a fabulous guest. Today we have Dr. Lou Bayer, and she is internationally known as a civility expert. And you may wonder what that is, but you are going to learn all about her and her best-selling book today. The name of her book is The Power of One. And there's so many wonderful things about Lou, but I'll just tell you that she has worked around the world with 300 facilitators in 43 different countries talking about civility. She was the first Canadian to win the prestigious Civility Star Award, and she won the Woman of the Year Award for iNation in 2018. So thank you, Lou. You have so much to offer to us, and I am so grateful that you are my first guest in 2019. I am here expecting a good year, and all of us on Transformation TV are expecting that for you too. So, with no further ado, I will bring, hi Lou,
Hi, Robin. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. So, can you tell us, oh, I just lost you, I don't hear you.
Oh, I can hear you. I can see you.
Oh, great, great, okay, there we are, side by side, here we are. There's our lovely Lou today. So Lou, can you just begin by telling us how you came up with the title, The Power of One?
Sure. Thank you. I had been working on the book for a little while. In my work, traveling and meeting interesting people, I'm always collecting stories and trying to pay attention when I experience something that is kind and civil. But I had been watching the Golden Globes, and Oprah Winfrey did a speech. And she talked about a lot of things, but there was some statement that she made that resonated with me about how each of us has the power to be the change we want to see, that we each can influence the world and the people around us. And so it struck me at that time that the title of the book should be The Power of One, that it's not just about the power, but it's about accountability to be positive and make change. I guess a lot of people are inspired by Oprah, but at that particular moment, she was the reason I called the book that.
Wow. That's, you know, that's great. I love that title because I am, people that follow me and know me, they know that I'm into numerology. And
Oh,
the number one is a very, very powerful number, according to numerologists. It basically means that you're on your right journey in life. It could mean angels watching over you. It's all good. So,
oh,
and
good, good.
I'm actually guided by that number, but I really like that title because I think about, civility as being kind and civil to someone, but it's so much more than that, right?
That's right. That's right. So, for civility experts, we've defined civility in a particular way, and it incorporates three main things. One is conscious awareness. So, that's knowing that your thoughts, how you show up, even what you wear, your tone of voice, civility is being conscious of your ability to influence. It's also a continuous acknowledgement of your responsibility to ease the experience of other people. So, just because we're human and on the planet, I believe we have a responsibility to each other and to all living things, in fact, if we expand it a little bit. And the third piece is about a consistent effort. So you can't just be kind some of the time. You need to strive at least to be kind all of the time. So civility is not just manners, it's a way of being, it's about your character, it's about your values, it's about how you make decisions. It's quite a complex endeavor, actually, but certainly manners are one small part of it.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
Yes. I think we have a little bit of a delay here with the voice, and I hope, the viewers, or when we broadcast this or it gets replayed, they'll be able to get the whole gist of what you're saying. And I heard you say manners are just one small part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And is this something that obviously you go around the world teaching it? Do you teach it to corporations, to schools? Can you talk about that a little more?
Sure. So, our focus as an organization is civility at work. I have the privilege of being recognized as the leading expert on civility in the workplace. But workplace impacts us in terms of the community because so many of us work where we live. It impacts the way we are at home because many of us um, spend more time at work than with our family, and so if we take home workplace incivility, it manifests as stress. It impacts how we raise children. Um, we do mostly work in workplace, but naturally some in political arenas, not for profit, school programs, community programs. We work with families. It's kind of a never ending story.
Okay. So can you hear me, Lou?
I can.
Okay. So this is interesting. So my daughter just got a wonderful promotion at work, and I'm so thrilled for her. And she's at a very high level. So for someone like her or someone that are in these large corporations, can they hire you to bring you in and teach this program?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So we have certification programs. So many organizations send their human resources or managers or workplace coaches come to get certified as civility trainers. It's cost effective. Then they go back to work and deliver the training on site. Or organizations do call us and we come, or one of our affiliates from wherever they are in the world will go to their workplace and deliver the training. We customize it to meet their need. But yes, there's many options. We have online programs as well. We have 27 lessons that people can buy if they want to self-study. We have all kinds of books, lots of ways to get civility.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need that. We really need that.
Mm-hmm.
And now if we wanted to talk about the boot camp, because people are going
Right.
to be interested in your book, the Power of One. And if they get your boot camp, that's they get that from Transformation TV. That's where all the wonderful transformation leaders are who have programs that we want to disperse out into the universe to expand consciousness and to help one another. So can you describe your boot camp a little for us?
Sure. So the boot camp, there are 10 modules, and each one covers one specific aspect of what I perceive to be a component of personal power. So for example, I think that if people have one underpinning value, in my case, it's civility, something that means something to them that they stand for, that's the starting point. I think that drives everything else. But the boot camp also covers things like one story. I tell a story about Immaculée Ilibagiza, who was a survivor of the Rwandan genocide, and her story is incredible and it inspired me to change the way I live and think, and it's become part of my story. And I believe each of us has a story, one key story in our life that changes who we are and changes how we influence. I talk about one decision, one mission, what's your life mission? We talk about one gift. Chapter 7 is about one act of courage. Time and time again, I see how one choice can change somebody's life path, and we all have the power to make those choices. We talk about one kindness. I remember as a child several incidences where unexpectedly somebody was particularly kind to me, and it made a huge difference in how I saw the world. And as I get older, it's kind of a personal goal of mine to extend at least one kindness every day to a stranger. It can be as simple as, that pay it forward in the Tim Hortons or the Starbucks coffee line, but it can also be compliments. It can be a moment of attention. Throughout the book, we talk about the power of one, not being just one person, but one gesture, one moment of attention, one decision, one kindness, one thoughtful gift. There's one word sometimes can make a difference. Sometimes a moment of silence can make a difference. But I want people to pay attention to the increments, the little things, and not to undervalue or underestimate 1 second, one person, one mind shift, just one in all of its fullness. And so I'm so inspired, Robin, that you mentioned one. I didn't know that about astrology, that one is a significant number. I'll have to research that, but I think it's been significant for me my whole life, and I never really understood why. So thank you for sharing that. But the boot camp covers all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yes. That sounds like a wonderful boot camp for someone. And actually, it's numerology, not
Oh,
astrology.
numerology. Yeah. Okay.
Numerology, and it's very interesting what you're talking about, the story, the one story, and I can totally relate to that because my one story is what changed my life to do what I do. And my one story was the loss of my husband by suicide. And that one story is what changed me. But interestingly, that one number is what actually guided me because that number one kept popping up everywhere after he died. And it was basically his way to try to connect with me, to have me open up to the power of one. So it's just amazing that your title is called The Power of One, and how you and I have already so many connections on what we're talking about, because these stories, like you said, they're just intertwined, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think it's important for people to realize that you have to pay attention. As you mentioned, after your husband's death, then you started to see the one all of the time, and for whatever reason, you were in tune and it resonated, and you picked up on it, or the messages were so strong. But we live in a very busy, stressful, fast-paced, technology-oriented life, and many of us are just not present. And I believe that if you listen to your heart song and if you pay attention, that all of the answers are there, and that if we trust our instinct and follow our heart, we're naturally kind. I believe that most people want to be their best self. And so choosing to pay attention to these ones, all of these one things, listen for those one words that are meaningful, whether they're out of your mouth or someone else's. Pay attention to the one story that somebody takes time to share with you. A lot of it has to do with presence, and that's the civility piece, is being present.
Yes, Lou. I totally am in agreement with that, and I like what you particularly said about one, listening to one, it's the other person, right? It's not always,
Mhm.
I feel that so often we're always speaking and really not listening to people. And I think it's so important. And you just alluded to that. It's about others too. And one, right? Listening to them as well.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And we
Yeah.
seem to be clamoring. I feel like people are clamoring for the next shiny thing. And, as a result, we're neglecting the people close to us, not paying attention to the people in our own home, not paying attention to the people reaching out to us, not paying attention to the one task we should be fully committed to at that moment. It really is about deliberation and intention and focus. And it's really amazing for me since I wrote the book, working on the book, how it's shifted my, just the way I attend to things. I feel so much more present and so much more grateful for all of those one good cup of coffee in the morning. I don't have to have four. One warm sweater. I don't have to have 15. One good friend. I don't have to have eight. It's enough, right? And it was a really interesting and kind of a learning adventure for me writing the book, and the boot camp making those little clips was a lot of certainly fun, but I learned something every time. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I loved what you said about the kindness. I'm not talking over you, am I?
Nope, nope.
Oh, good, good, because I'm looking at the screen and I still see your lips moving and I don't want to be talking. I think I have a delay. So I hope the video is okay. I think it's just what's happening at my end. So if I am talking over you, please wave your hand and let me know
Okay.
because I don't want to speak over
Okay.
you. But I did love what you said about the one small kindness. And that's one of my steps in my process, my 10-step process, because I really think that's what we need to be doing. We need to be doing acts of kindness if we're going to live a satisfied, joyful, successful, civil life. I'll use your terms,
Mm,
civility. So, and that's what you teach. That's one of your
mm.
steps.
That's right. That's right. And I think we extended in the boot camp to talk about, one moment of patience. What would be the problem if, what would be the harm rather if I just paused for 1 minute before I press send? Or, this notion of restraint, one moment of consideration about the other person's perspective, one choice to forgive. There's all of these things, but again, it really just takes some deliberation and intention. And we're all so busy. I find many people hanging on by their fingernails, barely getting by. And the idea that we could take time to give of ourselves to somebody else is more than most people can muster these days. We're just barely surviving. And if we can extend these kindnesses and take the moment, reach out. And if everybody did that, I think all of our lives would be less stressful, simpler, kinder. But somebody has to make that choice.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I am very grateful to you, and so is Transformation TV and all these affiliations that you're working with because you are making a difference. You are out
Oh,
there sending this information and it can be learned, correct?
oh yes, that's one of the things about civility that some people don't understand. We'll say to people, just be nice or be kind or show respect. But oftentimes people don't realize that if you've never experienced kindness or true respectfulness, if you've never been treated with dignity, it's not something that many people can naturally show. So we teach in civility class in the workplace what respect looks like. We teach social intelligence. We teach cultural competence. It's a learned skill and it's a measurable competency. People don't just learn to be nice by accident, they learn by watching. Um, Somebody had to set a good example. They had to be treated that way in order for them to experience and understand it. So you can have compassion or be an empathetic person by nature, but that doesn't guarantee that you'll be able to outwardly exhibit those things those are behaviors that we learn. So many people didn't understand that just like you would teach table manners, you have to teach what respect at work looks like. You have to teach body language. You have to teach tone of voice. You have to teach word choice. That's what civility in practice looks like.
Mm, very, very, very interesting. I know there's a lot of teachings out there about the language we use, but uh, is there a lot of teaching, or are you in the forefront of teaching body language? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So, social intelligence is one of the four core competencies for civility. And social intelligence includes social radar, which is your ability to read nonverbal and tonal cues, it's social style adaptation, and it's social knowledge. So, the research shows that because of reliance on technology, many younger people, especially, never learned body language. So, I learned, for example, and maybe you did, Robin, when we were young, we sat at the table every dinner. Sometimes lunch. We came home from school and had lunch at the table, even with our siblings. But 7 nights a week, we had dinner with the family at the table. And I learned through dinner that if my father raised his eyebrow a certain way, that that meant something. And he didn't have to say, he didn't have to use words. We just learned that. We see from the research that many young people are having their dinner in the back of the truck while their mother drives them to soccer practice, or their father's driving them in the morning, and so they're not. Many children are not experiencing that face-to-face relationship building. Even with their friends, they're playing video games. They're not on a, engaging face to face in the backyard or whatever. So, through no fault of their own, many young people are not building their social intelligence skills, particularly nonverbal. It's also complicated now because when I grew up, we were pretty homogeneous. Everybody looked the same, everybody spoke the same language. Now we have, in most communities, up to 100, 150 different cultures. And so the nonverbal cues are much more diverse. So you can't just hang with your immediate group, you have to interact with diverse groups in order to pick up social cues of the people you might be interacting with at work or in the community. So if you don't put yourself in those situations because we're fearful or prejudiced and so on, you never learn those cues. And as a result, you get to be 22 and you're at work and we can't interact successfully with people.
Yeah,
So we have to teach all those skills. Yeah.
yeah. Well, my generation, our generation and our parents' generation, we understand this. Okay. But the problem is, and we see this as a very threatening issue, but the younger generation, they don't see it. They're not aware of it. And it is impacting how we relate to one another because of exactly what you just described. They don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to interact. They don't have the awareness of these cues. So how do we make them aware? Do we have to create an app for them?
Yeah, and it's interesting too because technology is amazing, but even animation, the nuance is face to face. The very slight shift of a body weight and those things. Um, even like us today, people can use a filter. They can make their eyes look shiny and bright, and you can't pick up over a screen that somebody might be sad and respond accordingly. It's true. I don't know if an app would work, but we need to do something. We also see that human touch. The reason people shake hands, the reason that they come closer in proximity, is so that we can really feel each other's energy, so that there's a human touch, a real connection, and you don't get that by internet and by distance and technology. So there's all of these pieces that some of the old ways were the best ways. Not all, but some. And there's science behind that. The value of interacting face to face, hand to hand contact, a hug, even. Those kind of things. Eye contact, looking into somebody's eyes when they're 12 inches away from you. And I think more and more we're seeing heightened levels of depression. We're seeing all sorts of psychosomatic and physical and emotional outcomes of getting away from the human side of things. So more and more in my field, I see people kind of coming back to that. We're encouraging bowling leagues again, community parties, office Christmas parties, birthday parties, family reunions, things that we've gotten away from in the last 20 years for a range of reasons.
Sure, sure. And it's we understand this, and like I said, I think it's up to the parents now to really, help their children not be so stuck on the social media and encourage them to interact, right?
Yes.
So it's so important because you see it, I see it. I'm around young kids all the time, and it's very it's very disturbing sometimes. I might put my hand on like my niece or nephew and they might say, "Oh, don't touch me." I'm like, "Okay, this is what we're used to. We're used to hugging, touching, or whatever." And it's just created a whole different dynamic in the universe because of the social media. And that's why going back to what you are doing, I mean, I think your program needs to be taught in the schools to the young kids.
Oh, well, thank you. Some schools are using programs like ours. Some we call it character programming. Sometimes they call it respectful classroom. There's all kinds of names for it, but I agree with you. Anything that encourages people to build real human touch and real contact, to really engage with each other, I think is incredibly important. And one thing I noticed too is we're just not comfortable with silence. It used to be you could just be in the room. I remember my brothers and sisters and I, and you could all be in a chair reading a different book, and you just wanted to be together. You didn't have to have a thrill a minute. It didn't have to be constant music or noise or, all of this stimulus all the time. And a moment of silence, the power of silence. We cover that in the boot camp too. There's huge value in that as well.
Yes. Oh, yes. I love to be in silence, and I do believe that's the reason people go to specific groups to pray, to meditate, because they can get back to that silence. And again,
Yes.
it's the social media that kind of keeps us away. It's hard to be disconnected. Okay, here we go. Look, got my phone here. It's right here by me. Oh, and I see I have a message, but it comes back to choice, right, Lou? I mean, it's about
That's right.
choice, right?
That's right. That's right. Yes. And we talk about that. I think module 2 of the boot camp is about one decision. And there's a point where you have to decide, what is of value to you? How are you going to spend your time? What do you want to leave behind? Not in this kind of dramatic legacy way, but, every day, we should be able to put our head on the pillow at night and feel good about some influence or some impact or something positive that we either participated in or contributed to or initiated. And I think we'd sleep a little bit better, if that was something that we could achieve every day.
Sure, sure. And now, when you go around to the different workplaces and the different organizations, do you see that there is a big, large lack of civility? Is that why our world is the way it is? I mean, we are lacking this social intelligence, but you see it, but then again, you see the hope after someone goes through your program.
Yes, and sadly, I would say there's a lot of toxicity in workplaces. My personal view and some of the research we've done at Civility Experts suggests that a lot of it is grounded in fearfulness. People are afraid about the economy. They're afraid about change. They're afraid about finances. They're afraid about diversity and culture and how the world is changing. So there's some fearfulness, and they tend to hold tight. to what they have, and they want what's theirs, and a little hesitant to share, and so on. So fear is, in my view, one of the main causes of incivility. The second, I would say, is a lack of restraint overall. Everybody's in a rush. We're in the habit of hurrying. We're in the habit of kind of grabbing on. We want to talk even if it's not our turn. This lack of restraint, I think, is the number two problem. And third, I would say it's a real competency issue. People just, we are afraid to correct each other. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to be perceived as racist if we say the wrong thing, and so forth. So I feel like many people have not actually been taught how to interact in a positive, civil way. So fear, lack of restraint, and competency, I would say, are the main three reasons. But yes, sadly, the majority of workplaces we're called into are quite toxic, very unhealthy.
But then after you come in with your program, if people embrace it, then you can see they can benefit from the results, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And in almost every case, we see immediate impact in the classroom. Sometimes people are overwhelmed with emotion, but it's this realization when they have a moment to be present, to see that their fear is not grounded. It's some of it is just perception. It's not reality, but also that they're not alone in that fearfulness, that we're all just trying to get by. We're all just doing the best we can. And so when somebody behaves badly, that it's not necessarily personal, it's often a habit. And if we're patient with each other, if we're kind to each other, we can alleviate some of that fearfulness. And most people, given the opportunity, really do want to be their best self. And if we let them, if we invite them, if we provide that opportunity, it's amazing how much good there is in the world. I always leave refreshed and happy and hopeful. In addition, I think most people, given the opportunity, they will practice the skill. People will say all the time, Lou, I didn't know that when I was saying, hey guys, and it's 8 women out of 10 in the meeting, that was harmful or offensive. I didn't realize that. And that's a silly example, but oftentimes it's awareness. So once people know that they're causing harm, whether they meant to or not, they're happy to adjust their behavior, but somebody just has to have the courage to tell them what to do differently.
Sure. And it sounds like if someone got your book and read your book and went on Transformation TV, bought your videos, it could be a life-changing experience for them. I really think so.
I hope so.
Yeah, but just when you talk about that, it just really hit me, listening to you about that one moment to pause, because I think that we just respond so quickly in everything. And if we could just pause and just ask for, okay, what's my next right action?
Mm-hmm.
What is going to create the highest good for everyone involved? But that takes a pause, right?
It does. It does. And I think that it's a practice to pause, because we're so afraid we're going to miss something. We're so afraid they won't call back if we don't pick up the first ring. We're so afraid someone else will get the gig. We're so afraid, there won't be your favorite donut left on the tray. There's all of this kind of unnecessary panic, and I think a lot of self-created stress, that we're just in the habit of living that way. And so it takes real intention to stop for a minute, and take a breath. And it sounds so easy, but I know in practice it's not that easy. But I would say that the power of that, as you've alluded to, it's incredible. What a difference that can make in how we relate to people, how they react to us, the quality of our relationships in life. It's incredible.
Sure. And I think that if we have this mindset, you talked about fear, and fear has a lot to do with lack, or like not enough. And if you believe that there's enough to go around in the universe for everyone, then you don't have fear. You don't need that strong competition. You don't need that jealousy because there's enough for us and we should all want the good for everyone.
That's right. That's right. And today I had a meeting earlier this morning, a coffee meeting, and the lady that I was with was so patient, and she said to me, the gentleman beside us was tapping the table because he wanted his coffee refill right now. We had to have it right now. And just that you can't even take 30 seconds and pause and enjoy a good cup of coffee and just be calm and then wait for the service person to come. And there's everything from people roll out of bed and we're just in a rush constantly. And that why wouldn't one be enough? As you've mentioned, we've got so much opportunity, so much fresh water, so much, like there's so much, and there's enough for everybody. We just have to appreciate it and pause. And I think there's a great, I forget the name of it, but there is a gratitude course on Transformation TV as well. I've been meaning to take that one too.
Hmm. Well, you talked about personal power earlier. You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that. And is that incorporated? Are you talking about how one can get back the personal power? Because we all have power. Is it that we've lost our power because we're not civil? I mean, I didn't know what you actually were talking about. Can you mention the personal power again? Because the reason I'm bringing it up is because I believe that, yes, we all want to feel that sense of personal power.
Yes, and I think that's one of the messages we try to thread through the whole course and through the whole book, because part of the issue is how do you define power? So for me, the power of um, learning, the power of sharing my story, the power of choice. You mentioned we each have the power to choose, the power of consciously pausing for 1 minute. Personal power is everything from decision making to resilience to self worth, right? There's all of these components, but I, as a teacher and trainer by trade, part of the challenge for me is how do you take that knowledge and use it in your life. So in the book, we tried to take this concept of you have the power, and here's 8 ways with your decision making, with the values you choose, with the choices you make, um, with the questions that you ask, with courage, with kindness. So we tried to show what personal power looks like in practice. Because I hear a lot of talk about that personal power. Take back your power. Don't give up your power. And there's, again, a bit of that fearfulness embedded when it's presented that way. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm answering the question well, but
Well, that's good.
yeah, that's
That personal power is going to be different for everyone at different stages in their life. And I think for me, I could say, yeah, I recognized that the power of choice is what led me on my journey because I had to choose, okay, do I want to go on with my life? What do I want to do? Okay, it was that power
yeah,
of choice. But then for someone else, it could be the power of being kind or being, let's say, courageous. It's whatever,
yeah,
it's a very unique situation for all of us, right?
that's right. That's right. Yes, yeah. And I think part of it is that moment, deciding that your contribution is meaningful. That decision or that recognition that each of us has a gift. We're not sure what that is a lot of the time. Sometimes we misinterpret the gift, but just acknowledging that each person has a gift, I found for me, that helps me understand that even the person who is homeless on the street, I don't know what it is, and maybe they don't, but they have value. And there's a gift there that is maybe unmet or unrecognized or unused, but the person has value. And I don't have to know what the gift is, but I have to value the person. And it changed how I see all kinds of people. So even the person who's screaming at me in the parking lot, when I tell myself, that person has value, that they have something good to offer the world, maybe not this moment, but it's in there somewhere, it allows me just to take a breath and, let them have their angry moment, because I know that's not the whole person. It's
Yeah.
right.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's so funny because when I was going through all of my transforming modes, my transformation from so many different places, I remember I was working on the anger at the time. And when a driver would cut me off, what I did is I would blow him a kiss. And oh boy,
Ah,
I've been doing that ever since. I've been doing that for 10 years. I love it. Somebody gets angry, I blow them a kiss. And they may not see it all the time, but you know what
right.
it does? It makes me feel better.
That's right. Yeah. And that's a way of, you're choosing not to act in that responsive, angry way. You're choosing restraint, and it's a conscious, it's practice too, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. And now I'm sure there's some love behind that kiss, as opposed to a, taunting kind of kiss, right? It was really a, I'm going to let this go. Here's some love, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because really, I mean, my belief is that, everything that we do every day of our life should come from the foundation of love. And that's
Yes.
what I believe. I don't care if you're in the workplace or you're in the school place or you're in a business contract dealing with someone. I believe that we should always come from that place of love. And I think that's kind of what civility is, partly.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think some of the personal power comes by knowing that you're deserving of that same love, right? So it's self respect, and you love yourself, and you choose to treat yourself at least as well as you expect to treat others. I think that's, part of the foundation too.
Yes. Well, I know your programs are geared for the workplace, but, as I'm talking with you and people watching this, I feel that there is just so much value. It just, if we could take some of these ones that you mentioned and just begin to integrate them into our lives and truly understand them, they're life-changing things. It's just,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
so is there anything that pressing that you would like to share? I mean, we have a few more minutes, but I want to make sure we share with our audience something that, it's a need for them, like something that they can walk away with and say, hey, this could change my life. Because I've walked away with many things just today listening to you. But I encourage everyone watching to get Lou's book and get her boot camp, and it's a life-changing experience. So, Lou, can you share anything? You want something to share?
Thank you. So, I think one of the lessons that I was reminded of writing the book, and something that my daughter kind of spits back at me when I have a weak moment, is this concept of assuming the best. So, positive thinking is one thing, but if I assume the best outcome, I assume the best of a person, I assume the best case scenario, I find I go into situations, I go into interactions in a different way. And so, even when somebody is behaving badly, I will tell myself that this is a exception to the rule with this person. They're having a moment, or there's some circumstance I'm not aware of. I'm going to assume the person will self correct so that I don't have to correct them, and they usually do. I will assume that this has nothing to do with me, kind of let go of it that way, don't own it. And I find it oftentimes they'll come back and say, such and such happened. Um, it's hard to explain a little bit, but just this voice in my head, now it's my daughter's voice, always saying, assume the best, assume the best. And I find that when you assume the best, you usually get better than you expected.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great boy. You taught your daughter well. If she's teaching you now, yeah, that's wonderful to assume the best.
Mhm.
Absolutely, I think it's a good way to go into 2019 to
Yes.
assume the best. And what I have been saying and put my message is to expect the good. expect it. But I did want to ask, just because what you're doing, I would imagine that you have a very heightened sense of awareness of people acting badly, more than most.
Yes, and it's hard work for me, but I try to focus instead on the good versus the bad. And I've been working on my poker face because you don't want to accidentally show your disappointment, or that's where that voice comes in. If I'm thinking assume the best, people are good, then it changes the way I look as well. My face and the way you respond. But it's true. I do tend to notice kind of what's wrong. Often I think it's a flaw, kind of human nature, maybe more so than what's right and what's good. So I'm working on that every day. It's hard work.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a flaw. I think that you have a special gift. And
Okay.
it's awareness, because you're able to now take all these things that you have learned, in your life because of your one story, and to spread it out into the world, and to teach these things that are uh, they're so valuable. And I think that they are needed so much, and not just in the workplace. Everything you said is about in our homes. It's about in our
Mm,
homes, and it's about our own personal lives. And if we can embrace these ideas, we're helping transform the planet.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lou, so much for joining us today. I'm just thrilled that you took the time out of your busy schedule, because I know you travel a lot. You were in my home state. You were in Chicago, I think, about 6 months ago when we tried to do
Yes.
our
Yeah.
interview, right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do you have any upcoming travels?
Oh, it starts on Sunday. I'm probably the next 6 months. It's ongoing. Yeah, there's never a shortage of this kind of work, which is good and bad at the same time, right? But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? We're gonna take your daughter's recommendation to assume the good. By the way, how old is she?
17.
Well, she's a very bright young woman, because if she
Yes.
keeps that idea up in her mind, assume the good. I love that. Assume the good. I think
Yeah.
that, this is a great way to start the new year, assuming the good, expecting the
Hmm.
good. And
That's right.
yes. So if that's it, I think that we've covered everything. And if anyone wants more information, you know where to go. Go to www.transformationtv. You will find Dr. Lou Bayer and myself and many others on that platform. And each and every one of us is going to help you transform your life. So thank you all for watching, and have a beautiful day. Bye for now.
Thank you, Robin.
You're welcome, Lou. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.